Welcome to the BuyBox Experts podcast. We bring to light the unique opportunities brands face in today's e-commerce world.
Hello and welcome to the BuyBox Experts podcast. This is Eric Stopper. This episode is brought to you by BuyBox Experts. BuyBox Experts takes ambitious brands and makes them unbeatable. We have a team of consultants that will identify key low-hanging fruit for some of your best-selling ASINs on Amazon. And I have to say, our advertising audit that we are launching this week is incredible. If you think that there are holes in your advertising and you want to make more money on Amazon, or even if you just want to know your market size, a lot of people don't know your market size, go to buyboxexperts.com, click on the free analysis button. We will be charging for it. I believe we're starting that next week, and so go and do it while it's free. It's free, no strings attached right now. You'll be connected with me or a member of our consulting team. But go and check it out. We really want to help you out. Now, today, I am joined by Adam Miraballa of Miraballa Leadership Advisors. Adam is an 18-year music industry veteran, having led the digital revolution from inside formidable companies like Warner Music, Sony Music, Omnicom, and Nokia. He's an experienced leader, and he's a certified executive coach and trainer. He specializes in helping executive leaders galvanize their teams into focused, consumer-minded, winning organizations that build the fan-artist relationship and grow market share, revenue, and profit. I brought Adam on the show because of you, our listeners. You are growing your businesses. Hopefully, you're making millions of dollars and you're becoming these amazing business people. But I want you to do it right. Okay, we talk about tools on this podcast. We talk about keywords. We talk about how to poise your listing for sale against other people, how to do better photography and graphic work. But today I'm talking to you as a business owner. You've got to do this right because you probably were great as a two-man shop. But do you know how to hire? Do you really know how to hire? That's why I brought Adam on the show. And Adam, welcome.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you having me on.
So a lot to cover. I'm sure everybody is interested in hearing kind of what your business coaching approach is. I have lots of specific questions for you, but I kind of want to understand, just in addition to the intro that I gave, why are you an executive coach?
Yeah, listen, I've run teams now for 18 years, and all of those teams have been businesses that started from either nothing or were very small and then were, built into multi-million-dollar organizations. And so great example is, the first digital business I started was me with no assistant. And I built that team into a team of about 12 people. And we had partners like Apple and Walmart.com and Amazon, et cetera. And so we really started to get some expertise around us, and that organization built out. Well, over the years, my style, I would say, as a manager, as a leader, has been one with a sort of a coaching style or developmenting. My style as a leader has been one that's been really focused on developing the team and developing the people on the team. And at some point, I was getting a lot of feedback from people that worked for me about my style. And that led me to this idea that I should probably move into executive coaching and use that passion I have around developing people for helping leaders develop their teams themselves, and it's been very, very rewarding.
You were prompted by your employees at these companies that you were building to get into executive coaching. They prompted you to move into this arena because they saw that your managerial methods were in a way superior, or at least they really responded very well to them. Give us a flavor, give us a taste of what that managerial process is.
Sure. As a manager, as a leader, I learned very early on in my career. I was working for the Coca-Cola company, and they put a lot of time and effort into developing people who wanted to manage others. And so I really took those learnings and I applied them as I moved into the entertainment field, and I started to run my own departments. I started to use those skills that I learned and really appreciate how they helped me bring about results through other people. And that's really what leadership is all about. It's moving yourself aside and saying, okay, I'm not the person who's going to get the results anymore. It's going to be the people on my team. How do I inspire them? How do I motivate them? How do I support them so that they can get the job done? Because I have to count on them to do it now. That's my role. And so some of the things I would do is spend time and effort developing people one-on-one, developing the team dynamic by having offsites and working together in group exercises to build the continuity and the connection between team members. And what I was seeing time and time again is these types of approaches really led to the team, superseding all of our goals and just knocking things out of the park. And so the feedback was coming back from some of these people that work for me that this is really something that I have a knack for. And at that point, I thought, well, this is probably a great opportunity now to move from managing teams within a company to then helping leaders inside of other companies to sharpen their leadership skills and help them get results through other people.
So how important is it to have these offsites, these group kind of specialty meetings to bond the team together?
Well, I think team chemistry is one component of it, and I think it's very important. Each one of those opportunities is unique to the team, unique to the members of the team, and the leader has to really think about what's the right, what's the right forum or opportunity to bring people together. Sometimes it's something that's as simple as doing things on a regular basis in the office. Sometimes it's more grand, and it's off-site at a bed and breakfast, and you guys are making food together, and there's some exercises like that. But there's all different things that you can do to build the chemistry within a team.
Yeah, you said specifically that. Well, what I really want to understand is, right, I'm a business owner, right? And how do I know that I have a problem? How do I know that I need to do something different, that I need to have an offsite, that I need to bring somebody in and talk to my team, that I need to change something, right? Like what's the clearest indicator that there is some underlying thing that I'm missing as a business owner?
Well, that's the perfect opportunity right there for executive coaches to come in and really help a leader. And some of the signs that you will see if things are not right are heavy turnover, which is one of the most expensive costs to a business. You'll see fighting between team members or team members that are not able to work through issues. You'll see lost opportunities. These are some of the signs to a leader. If you see opportunities out there and your team is working on it, and for some reason you don't bring it home, you've got to wonder what's going on there. So these might be some of the telltale signs, but the tools that can be used, there actually are quite a number of tools that can be used for a leader to help understand those things. Of course, there are things like employee surveys, etc., but you can go much deeper than that. And you can, for instance, one of the areas that is very hot right now is emotional intelligence. And people want to work in an organization that responds to them not only as business people, but as human beings. And if you're not doing that as a leader, as an owner of a business, then your people are going to feel it, and you'll see some of those things that we just talked about, high turnover, whatever it is. Well, there are tools out there that help a leader to understand how well emotional intelligence is being adopted inside of their organization. And that could be for them as the CEO or an entrepreneur, or it could be for their senior leadership. And the way that would work is, you would actually have a questionnaire around emotional intelligence, and it asks the people who work there, these are the different components of emotional intelligence. Which ones are important to you? So first you understand which ones are important.
Two-sided assessment then. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Because not every area of emotional intelligence is important to every team. So you might find if there are 42 in the different categories, you might find that out of those 42, there are really 20 that make a difference to this team. Then it asks the leader, okay, well, these are the things you're saying are important. How is the leadership doing against these important emotional intelligence attributes, that you have identified that are important to you as a team? And then it helps the owner understand where they're doing well and where they're not doing well. And so they can start to adjust, their approach to make the culture stronger.
Are the business owners that get the feedback from their employees typically surprised by the responses that they get?
I will tell you, I've seen a leader who had very strong connectivity with his team, and he was getting some of this feedback, and there were a couple of areas that he didn't do well in, and he was noticeably shaken by it. He was upset by it because generally he got great marks, but there were a few areas that he was falling short. And so during the session, you could see that he was getting somewhat emotional about it. He wasn't being angry about it.
He was responding.
Yeah, he was responding that he was falling short of what his team needed, and so that led to adjustments in this
major change
in this exec style. And I continued working with them, and what I saw was an improvement in some of the ways that they would offer feedback, some of the ways that they would listen and give a little bit more time for people to contribute, etc. And it made a huge difference.
So that's excellent. I would wonder how many. I would wonder how often the leaders in an organization are kind of missing the indicators, right? Where they're just blatantly unaware of the fact that their team is not jiving, doesn't really care about them, almost sees them as, I don't want to say replaceable, but as not a critical functioning arm of what they do in their daily business, right? Because I felt that, in past businesses. How often does this kind of executive coaching prompt major change, right? Like significant organizational, just sweeping reform for a business? And how often is it just like, yeah, you need to hang a poster of a picture of you and your team, or you need to have like a weekly check-in or a monthly, I don't know, audit of the company?
Right. It definitely spans all of those different realms that you just outlined. One of the things we say in coaching is that you can't coach somebody that doesn't want to be coached, right? So the first step for a leader is to be thinking about, do I want an outside person who's not tied to this organization politically, right? And doesn't have any skin in the game other than my success as a leader? Do I want someone like that, an outside person as a sounding board, an outside person as somebody I can brainstorm with, right? Who's not necessarily going to, say everything I want to hear because I'm the CEO of a company. Well, that brings a lot of value to a leader. And as I said, the first step is that they want to be coached. If they want to be coached, then the things that you just highlighted, the different areas of improvement, they start to actually emerge very quickly. And the reason that is because a coach will usually go in and bring some tools to the party that will help the leader understand where they sit and where the organization sits and how the organization is moving and breathing. So one of those things is just assessing a leader's style in their thinking style and their behavioral traits. Well, if you think about leadership and building the ultimate team, right? You're trying to build this business. Well, if you have certain traits and certain qualities and you understand what those are, then when you're hiring around you, you can actually hire for different traits that support and that complement who you are as a leader. Mm-hmm. And therefore, you can build a nice, very diversified skill set within your leadership ranks. And when you said earlier, well, sometimes a leader, they might not be aware of what's going on. Well, that might be one of their attributes, is that they move very quickly, right? And they're moving through business very quickly. So maybe they hire people around them that have a little bit more eyes and ears, right? And touch points that can communicate to them about what the greater team is feeling. So these are some of the things that you can do as a leader, when you have somebody that's really supporting you to drive the organization to its best possible self.
Now, specifically, and this is for a lot of our listeners, just in practice, right? So you run a product business and you hire somebody to run your marketing. Now, these are the people that I engage with the most frequently, is these marketing folks, right? They do Walmart, they do Amazon, they do eBay, maybe they manage the website. If I want someone who is going to execute it better than I would, right? And I care about it the most because I'm the business owner. If I'm going to bring somebody on that is going to own it, right, who's going to go out and look for more product opportunities that we can bring into the business, who's really going to magnify that that role that they have in the company, what is my first step, right, as a business owner to fill that role, to replace me and become a better me in that specific role?
Well, I would say, first of all, as a leader, if you're the person doing it, which is very necessary for most businesses that are starting off, right, you have to be the one rolling up your sleeves and getting it done. But there comes a point then, if you're going to grow your business, you have to realize that as a leader, the people underneath you are going to want two things. They're going to want vision and they're going to want clarity from you. It's your job as the owner of that business, the CEO, the person who started that business. It's your job to be able to pull yourself up so that you can look at the longer strategic touch points of the business. And then when you're hiring that other person underneath you, that's where you want to look for skills that complement you. But also at this point now, if you're moving into more of a strategic realm and more of a long-term growth of the organization, et cetera, and the business, then, you would look at what are the needs of that particular role and what did you do really well? The way I would look at that is I'd say, well, what did I do well when I was doing it, rolling up my sleeves, right, and hands-on? What are the things that I wish I would have done better? And be a little bit truthful with myself in the areas that I could have done better. And I would build that into the job description and into the role so that I was getting the best of what I contributed as the person who was hands-on. And then also adding to that the things that I felt were missing because this business now needs to grow and move forward.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I want to go back to the discussion we were having around emotional intelligence. In an article you wrote back in June of 2018, I have a quote here. You said, if you can gauge and then improve the emotional intelligence in your team/company, it leads to much higher engagement from the people on the team. And that stronger engagement delivers focus, productivity, connective tissue between the departments and organizations that is nimble in a marketplace. I want to understand what you mean by connective tissue, right? We've got 5 teams here at BuyBox Experts, 5 exclusive teams, and most people running product businesses typically have, like 5 to 6 units that they manage. And so, what does connective tissue look like in these organizations?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, this is a hot area right now, emotional intelligence, and the reason it's such a hot area is that if a leader can create an organization that is really able to communicate well, that's really able to be transparent, that's really able to hear people's issues, then people in that place, they want to go the extra mile. They want to support each other. They just tend to excel as a team greater than other organizations that do not have strong emotional intelligence. And that emotional intelligence really needs to start from the top. And that includes things like listening and understanding to what the needs are of the people in the organization. So if the CEO of the company is doing that, right, and let's say they have 4 direct reports and they're providing that kind of high-minded leadership for their senior leaders, then usually it does trickle down, right? Mm-hmm. And then those senior leaders wind up embodying that same temperament because they've been treated well to their people and so on. We call it almost like the chocolate fountain when you're at a wedding. If you start at the top, right, and it's really great chocolate, and then it kind of cascades down to the larger levels of the organization. Well, if it starts at the top, it usually does cascade down, and the expectations are set right from the top about how we communicate, how we manage through issues, how we call out a problem or an issue. These are the kinds of things that help build connective tissue.
So you would sit down with one of these business owners and you would evaluate the way that they call out issues inside of their teams, right? So like I'm a business owner, and when I see an issue, someone didn't perform very well, the manner in which I talk to that team and the words that I use and the tone that I use, those are some of the things that you would actually walk through in these executive coaching sessions?
Yeah, so what you're talking about right now is what's called one-on-one coaching, and it is coaching with an executive to help them really bring their leadership skills to a different place. But all of us have had situations where we've had great managers we've worked for and really lousy managers that we've worked for. And if you try to personalize it for yourself, if you're, let's say you made a mistake at work, right? And the person who's managing you makes you feel small, makes you feel stupid, makes you feel unworthy of the role that you're in, even though it was just one mistake. Let's say you do 95% of everything great, and you've had this issue this 1 year and something's going wrong, right? That changes the whole dynamic about how you feel about working at that place, not just about what you did in that situation. And it makes people think, I don't want to be here if I'm going to be treated like this. Now you take that another direction, and I had a manager who managed me. I thought this approach was great. Whenever there was an issue, whenever there was a problem, he never blamed me. He would always say, so Adam, tell me what's going on here. Just an open-ended question like that, right? I had my chance to express what was happening. And in those cases, when a leader does that and is able to work through the issue and then recalibrate that employee to head in a different direction that's going to be beneficial for the company, right. It has long-term effects, because that person then wants to come back and make sure that not only they don't make that mistake again, but they'll actually help themselves course correct in the future because of the way the leader approached that issue, instead of making them feel small-minded and silly and stupid.
Now, is that one of the larger indicators of a lack of connective tissue, or what would you be able to walk into an organization and point at and just say that's a problem? Like immediately, without even really understanding the relationship dynamics between people or how communication is done? Are there any artifacts of a poorly managed team that you can point to very quickly?
Sure. I mean, I walked into an organization where the sales and marketing department literally were sniping at each other, right? Taking shots at each other. When you think about almost any business in the world, this was a distribution company, almost any business in the world, sales and marketing has to work in concert, right? For that business's customer to get the best experience. And so you had big national chains that were on the receiving end of this backbiting between sales and marketing. That's a telltale sign that the leader of that business did not have his hand on the till, right, and was not managing directly the subordinates of that organization, and letting them kind of left them to their own devices, which did not serve this organization's customers very well.
Fascinating. So there was an article that looks to be co-authored by you and Mark Nevins, titled "Right Person, Wrong Job: How to Avoid Hiring the Wrong Person for the Right Job." Right. So you have a list of attributes in that article. If you're going to promote somebody into a role, and this is kind of the conversation that people need to have behind, do you want the Steve Jobs or the Steve Wozniaks running your company? Mm-hmm. Well, Steve Wozniak is certainly more technically competent than Steve Jobs. He's this programmer. He's built all these hardwares. Like I look to him and I think, wow, this guy would be able to make the best product decisions. But it was a Steve Jobs thing. Like he was the one that was steering that ship. So you wouldn't necessarily want Woz. But if you're going to promote somebody inside of your organization, you're going to hire somebody inside of your organization, you talk about, there was 4 things specifically. The first one was having open career planning conversations with your top talent well before you consider promoting them. Can you talk to me about what that looks like?
Yeah, I mean, really, if you look at any organization, there are 2 spheres of people. There are 2 groups of people. One are the individual contributors. They are the people that get the stuff done. And then there are the managers or the leaders, the people that have to get results through others. And what usually happens in an organization, in most organizations, believe it or not, if you're a great individual contributor, so I am the salesperson, I'm the best salesperson.
You become a manager. You're the
You
sales
become the
manager.
manager.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just happens automatically, but it shouldn't be that way. Because what if the best sales manager is the person that you need to drive the business? And what if perhaps that person has no interest in managing others, right? So all of a sudden you take someone who has no passion around leadership, no passion around managing others, and no passion around getting results through others, and you put them in a position where their whole job is to get results through others, right?
Well, I've got kind of a bone to pick with that idea, and because I agree, but at the same time, especially in sales, if a inferior salesman becomes the manager, how do you avoid kind of like the disrespect where it's like, oh, you are not as good as me, I don't know that I should listen to you? You know what I mean?
Well, that goes to the conversations you ought to be having with your team. So of course, you're going to need someone who's competent in that function, of course, if they're going to lead. But the question is, if you have two competent people and one of them has a passion around leading and getting results through others, and the other person really is not that interested in managing and dealing with, when you're a manager, you're dealing with a lot of personal issues, you're dealing with a lot of gripes, you're dealing with a lot of, sometimes business issues that people bring to you day in, day out. Some people don't want to do that in their business day. They want to just focus on getting stuff done. Right, exactly. And so let's assume for the minute that you have two people and they're both competent in sales, but one has a passion for getting results through others. That's the discussion you want to have around, well, maybe this is, what does your career path look like? Do you want to manage people? You want to become a district manager? Then do you want to become a regional manager? Do you want to then become, I don't know, a national sales manager in 10 years? What are your goals, right? And you should be checking in with your employees on a regular basis, or their managers should be, to see where people want to go. If you get somebody who says, to be honest with you, I'm not really that interested in managing, right? Or you see that they don't necessarily have the skill set to lead other people and to get results through other people, then what you want to do for that person is you want to create a career path for them around individual contribution, meaning that you are right now, you're a salesperson and you're contributing this, that, and the other. You're not going to necessarily move into management because that's not what you want to do, and it's not where you're going to bring a lot of value, but we're going to continue to develop you as an individual contributor because we want you to know you're important to this organization, and we're going to develop you just like we'll develop someone to be a manager. But what you don't want is somebody who says, you know what, my family's growing, I have more responsibility, I need more money, so even though I don't want to manage people, the heck with it, I'll go ahead and put my hat and name in a hat to manage the team, because I know that's my only way to grow my influence and to grow my income inside of this organization. That's what you don't want to happen, which happens every day of the week.
And that's the responsibility of the business to be able to set up some sort of system that incentivizes growth in a way other than becoming a manager.
Exactly.
Right. So how do you do that then? I'm this guy, I just had a new baby, I want to make more money, I've been here for a while, I kill it at my job, and I don't want to be a manager. Right? What do I do? How do you as a business owner support my growth in the organization?
You know what? That's a great question. And there you go. There's the opportunity for someone who's leading a business to have an outside sounding board, right? That's not politically aligned to anyone inside the organization. And you would brainstorm those things. It really would be unique to what that person is, what their role is. However, if I'm just shooting off the hip and brainstorming a bit, it could be things like, well, we had thoughts about maybe expanding in, outside of the United States. Maybe you continue your responsibilities here for the major accounts that you're managing today, and you're the person that's leading our team to explore things outside the United States, right?
Sure.
Without managing people. There's one idea right there. And so what you would do is you would key into that person. What are some of the interests? What are some of the things that you could bring to the party, to this organization, that are outside of management that could really be of value? And you start to explore that. It might be a new product line. It could be, there's a lot of different ways it could go.
That makes a lot of sense. So that was number one. That was career planning conversations with your top talent. There's three more. The next one is, when discussing promotions into management, let your top performers know that you will work hard with them to develop alternative career paths based on their skills and capabilities. Is that what you just described? Is that the alternative career path? Or am I, as a business owner, saying, kind of that old adage, what happens if we train our people and they leave? And then the response should be, well, what happens if we don't train them and they stay? Is that kind of the idea there, that we're prepping them for even their next transition, like that they're going to leave because maybe the next step up for them is not within my organization? What are your thoughts there?
Well, the truth of the matter is, and if you are focused in on how to develop a person, even if they don't want to be a manager, right? And you're giving them opportunities, the truth of the matter is they are most likely to stay with your organization because you are hearing what their needs are. You are going out of your way to create the path for them, and you're giving them direct feedback that they're valuable to the organization and that you want to work with them. All of those things tend to make people feel more committed to the organization.
Sure. And those are indicators of emotional intelligence, I would say, being able to have those conversations and identify those things with a person.
Absolutely.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. The third is, if one of your top performers claims that she is passionate about managing people, have a skills assessment conversation. What does that look like?
Well, I mean, as I mentioned, there are a lot of tools that coaches can use. And there are tools that can help a leader or a CEO of a company understand if there's a match between what's needed in that role and how this person ticks. What are their thinking styles? What are their behavioral styles, right? Their behavioral traits. And do those things line up with the best in class person that you need for that role?
Sure.
So that could, and so that's one of the tools that a coach would bring to the party to help somebody understand. Now, let's say you did the assessment, you might, nobody's perfect in any realm, right, of what they do. Everyone, we're all human, we all make mistakes, etc. And we all have different sides of us. However, you might look at somebody and do the assessment and say, you know what, you're really great with, communication. Your pace is perfect for what we need, et cetera, et cetera. But there are some areas, that we need to bolster for you, and things that we want to develop in you. And that's a great conversation to have, because now you're saying to that person, we see a match here. We see an opportunity for you. So you're putting your hand up saying you want to be a manager. We're definitely seeing that, but we want to put you through negotiation skills, because you're going to be managing a team of, business development people, and you need to be a little bit sharper in negotiation or whatever it might be. Right. And so you're giving them the tools that they need. And as they go through that process, there's going to naturally be a point where they come back and say, hey, I've done this, I've done that. These are the things you guys asked of me. Where do we stand now? And that leads to, hey, I think we're headed to the right place. We're in a good spot now to give you this responsibility and hand it off to you in a way that you can manage it, not just let you go into the deep end of the pool, right? And sink or swim.
Yeah, and I think you're certainly speaking to the final point, which is, if you make a decision to promote a strong individual contributor, ensure that together, right, you create a detailed plan and blueprint for the transition. And it sounds like if you have this first conversation with top performers who want to get into management, that there's some homework that they have to do. You should almost make them qualify themselves and help them feel that they are a good fit for the role. And then once you've determined that they are a good fit, you then sit down and you make a plan for the transition, so that you don't have. And by the way, it's a great article by Mark Nevins and Adam here, and I'll put a link so that people can find it as well. But you talk specifically about Bill. And that's a fake person, but he represents a real client that you had, where maybe this blueprint and these skills assessments and alternative career paths weren't considered when he was promoted, because he was a strong individual contributor, right? And then tell me what happened.
Yeah, I mean, it was a classic example where you had this incredibly strong individual contributor. They had been promoted by the senior management into a managerial role, but because there were habits of having to control everything and only controlling my own destiny as an individual contributor, this person found it extremely difficult to then open themselves up to allowing others to get the work done. And so they were stifling the team below them. And so at some point, the dialogue turned to, well, listen, we need you to move more into a managerial role, not into the execution role. We know you're used to execution, but you need to be looking after your team, and you need to be developing them so that they can do that. And after a number of trials, it was very clear that this person was not going to move into that realm. So it was kind of unfortunately, it was a bad decision to have promoted that person because they had no interest. And when it was brought to their attention that they needed to kind of change, and they were given tools and opportunities to change, they didn't want to change. And so that turns into the worst possible scenario, right? So exactly what you said, if there was a dialogue ahead of time, we could have saved that opportunity and said, well, either you're not the right person, let's figure out another path for you. Or if this is something you're really passionate about, you've got to prove that this is something you're willing to expand your horizons on, before you take on that responsibility. You have to show a little bit of development before you take on that responsibility.
That makes a lot of sense to me. Now, the last thing that I want to touch on you is kind of this idea behind who is the right candidate to be talking with an executive coach. There's this long-winded, kind of fun conversation around whether building an organization is something where you make the strongest link stronger or you make the weakest link weaker. I think, and you've spoken to me about this in the past, but typically people who are already doing really well are some of the ones that need this executive coaching to get to the next stage of their business acumen, of their managerial ability. Can you kind of talk to me about that? Like, we're making the stronger people stronger. What about kind of the weak links? Are those just the ones that we help them make a transition to another company because they're not a right fit for us? Or kind of walk me through this.
Yeah, well, there's a lot there in what you're saying, and let's use sports metaphor. A sports metaphor in baseball, for instance. Mariano Rivera was one of the greatest relief pitchers of all time, right? He had a coach.
Yeah.
He's the talent, and there's a coach working with him to make sure that his talent is being brought out in the best possible way, right? So that you take that same idea and apply it to business. 25 years ago, the way executive coaching was used was in a punitive way, which is, John's not doing a good job, we give him a warning. John's still not doing a good job, we give him a warning. Third shot is, John, we're going to give you an executive coach for 3 months, and if you don't change, right, you're out. And it was really like sort of a last result. It's 180 degrees now. You have companies like Google, Apple, Microsoft, Facebook. They're all using coaching as a benefit, as a perk for their leaders. And companies like that are doing that for a reason, because if you can build the leadership skill set of the people that manage your organization, you start to get what's called a coaching style and a coaching culture. And so what that means is that everybody's sort of supporting each other.
Yeah,
right?
They're failing and learning.
Right.
Very much in a sports scenario, right? I go to the gym, everybody there is failing, and that's the objective. And so you're talking about building that into the culture, into the DNA of your company.
Exactly. And so if you offer that as a benefit, some of the people that I'm coaching, they're looking at this and saying, wow, my company's spending money for me to become a better leader, for me to become a better executive, for me to become a better business participant, in the organization, right? And that resonates with them because the company's, number one, is spending resources on them. Number two, they're developing skills that they wouldn't have developed without this resource. They can apply it directly to the business that they're managing for the company, right? Mm-hmm. And they feel good about themselves because they're taking their role seriously and putting themselves through the rigors of becoming better at what they do.
That makes total sense to me. I wonder how many people are going to hear this podcast and are actually going to seek out improving themselves. I think oftentimes we get stuck on the most recent email or the most recent PO, and we just forget about the fact that there are other people who are counting on us to develop them. Adam, people who want to get in touch with you, how do they find you?
Yeah, it's, adam.miraballa@gmail.com. They're welcome to email me there, or miraballaleadershipadvisors.com is my website, and you can connect with me there. And of course, I'm on LinkedIn under Adam Miraballa, and you're welcome to reach me there as well.
Awesome. Reach out to Adam, get your business coached, and build a great organization. Thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the BuyBox Experts podcast. Be sure to click subscribe, check us out on the web, and we'll see you next time.